head around these ideas coming from these precious lamas, so that we can become like them, so we can benefit beings like them. Sangye chodang toke chognam la jancho badu dagi kyapsu chi dagi chonyen ki personam ki drolam enche sangye dropa sho. Sangye chodang toke chognam la jancho badu dagi kyapsu chi dagi chonyen ki personam ki drolam enche sangye dropa sho. Sangye chodang toke chognam la jancho badu dagi kyapsu chi dagi chonyen ki personam ki drola penches sangye dropa sho. So this discussion we've been having about this business of Lama, what it means, this word, devotion to the Lama, trying to see it, trying to understand this psychologically, you know, in our, oh,
Thank you.
okay, understanding, okay, this idea of the Lama, the Guru, trying to understand it. And I think, for my mind anyway, is to strip away, for my sake, for my own mind I find this helpful, to strip away the words as we read them in the teachings, which we can easily misunderstand because it's not how we talk. Once we understand it, then we can read that and it's like nectar on our hearts, you know. That's why for me I always think it's to try and see psychologically in a natural, logical way how these ideas we can translate into ordinary life and see the benefit, you know. So like I was saying yesterday, the benefit of having a person who's an embodiment of the qualities that you're trying to learn is obvious. You want to learn tennis, you need a tennis knowledge holder. You know, you don't need some person who doesn't know tennis, it'll just mislead you. You need to want the word tenzin, knowledge holder. It's a lovely word. We need a knowledge holder badly. My mother was a knowledge holder when it came to cakes. And this is also interesting. You check that knowledge she had, how to make cakes. Where did she get it from? Her mummy. Where did she get it from? Hers. So basically, it goes right back in this unbroken oral lineage. So, you know, the way the Tibetans stress strongly, of course, in the Buddhist tradition, the Buddhists, not as the Tibetans, the necessity of the oral tradition. Don't hear it as some intellectual idea. It's reasonable, it's logical. You know, if for 100 years all cake makers had disappeared off this earth and no one knew what a cake meant, then it would just end up being a myth, wouldn't it? If there was no living person who knew how to make a cake, then it would just be a myth, because you just got words in a book. So this the oral lineage is obvious. Knowledge is passed down through human minds, you know. That's real knowledge. The rubbish is passed down with human minds as well, you know. So we need the human being who's embodying these qualities right in front of us. As you know, Buddha's dead 2,500 years ago. He's not here anymore. We need the person right now in front of us, embodying the very things we are trying to become. And I think on the most simple human level, I mean, Lama Yeshe would say this, we all dying to be loved, you know. Well, choose somebody who's appropriate, please. Choose somebody who won't rip your heart out. Choose somebody who won't let you down. Choose somebody who's worthy of your heart. Just makes sense, you know. We've got a human heart. We need to move it. We need to energize it. But we've got to mix it with wisdom. And the trouble is we can't tell the difference between proper heart and attachment heart. So we meet a person, you know, because it's spiritual, and we romanticize it and mystify it. And we hear some person, like some, say, amazing teacher, wow, far out, he must be a Buddha, he's so charismatic, he's so powerful, he moves everybody's minds, people adore him, he's fantastic, wow, have you heard that amazing Lama? Well, he must be a Buddha, just because you get excited. Excuse me, hardly logical reasons. Hitler excited an awful lot of people. Look where he led them. And even to think about, it's kind of interesting, you think of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we really love His Holiness. He is so powerful, he is so charismatic. Millions of people adore him. But that's not a logical reason to like him. Millions of people like Hitler as well. We've got to use our not common sense, check up on the Dalai Lama, see if he is valid. That is the sound basis for having devotion to the Dalai Lama, not because he makes you feel good. I mean, my goodness, people are in tears every minute from His Holiness. There's no logical reason. Oh, he must be the Buddha. I felt happy. Oh, he must be the Buddha. He made me cry. Excuse me. Too emotional, you know. Got to use logic. And once you're clear, and once you're committed, Then including His Holiness, believe me, He'll be tough with you. People who work close to Him say He's really powerful. And being the Lama, like even just like I said yesterday about my Kung Fu teacher, he could see I wanted his Kung Fu, so what did he do? He pushed me. He wasn't always cute and nice to me, believe me. He shouted at me. Well, I was honoured he shouted at me. I wasn't upset. I'm going to sue my Kung Fu teacher. Because he knew I wanted his Kung Fu, so he pushed me. And so and you look at it even, I think about sport. People, you know, there's some coaches in different sports are really renowned for being really tough, you know, but people, look at that relationship is really part of the one with the Guru as well. Like I said yesterday, we want to be loved. We are all needy, it's our attachment. But let's have a person who's worthy, whom we can need to love us, but whom we can trust to really guide us in the right direction. So the thing is, a person who's got I read like Australian rules football. You ever heard of Australian rules football? It's unique to Australia. It's famous. In Australia. It's based on Irish football. And it's been for about 150 years. Massive in Australia. Massive. Huge. My team is the Sydney Swans. And they won last year. Anyway, the point is, they're coaches. You know, there's so much news about them. I read it in my morning paper on my iPad, you know. And all these coaches, you hear about them. And then you hear about like the teams who really revere their coach. Well, of course, these boys who come along to play football, they're 18, 19, 20, of course they want to make their coach happy. They want to be loved by their coach, they want to be guided by their coach, and they want him to praise them. We're all like this. We're all little children. We want someone to love us, and as long as we're dying to be loved. Well, don't put that down, but have a person who's worthy of you, whom you can rely upon, who will never let you down, who for you is the Buddha, So this is kind of a serious relationship we're getting into. It's a long-term relationship, life to life, so you better check very carefully. Like I said yesterday, as the Bongaribate said, you better choose your guru very carefully. You're going to end up like him. It's a serious relationship, you know. And it's not just this life, but countless future lives. This is how they talk. So on this human level, it makes sense we need somebody like this. Look at our little hearts, you know. We become Buddhists, we get all excited, then we start to do meditation every day, then we kind of get a bit bored, you know. What am I going to do here? What's coming? What's next, you know? And if you haven't yet got a relationship with a teacher, I'm not trying to make you feel depressed or anything, but in my own experience, I would definitely say that what gives it life is my relationship with my teachers. My relationship, even if they're dead. I mean, she's dead, for God's sake, 28 years, you know, but still I feel like in the present tense. Because we've got this human heart. So if anybody's been Christian and had devotion in God, it's like that. I'm not kidding. It's like that. It's like that. Same. And it feeds that part of us, which is a huge part of us. But it's got to be based and grounded in intelligence, and grounded in wisdom, grounded in common sense. Not just the good feeling. You've got to have confidence. Confide, with trust, confidence, faith, trust that that person is valid. And that cannot be proved by that person. We have to be proving that. We have to have that confidence, which is how we were talking yesterday. We have to trust our own ability to make decisions on this. And it's a big fat one, because when we come to religion, we think it's all, you know, I've got to believe that person. And a person sounds like they're good to believe, or I believe them. Not enough to believe. You've got to have confidence. You've got to have confidence. You are the boss of your life, not the Buddha. Not the Guru. In one sense you can say that. It's true. So first we have to, like we said yesterday, you first have to know what you want. People are looking for a spiritual path. That's good, but you haven't found it yet, so you can't jump onto one teacher yet. If you do find the teacher, then you can deduce that must be your spiritual path. Sometimes the teacher comes first. Sometimes the path comes first. Sometimes they come together. In my case, I was looking for a spiritual path, and I bumped into Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, and so the path and the Lamas came together for me, you know. So doing all the checking, the researching, listening to Buddhist teachings, hearing about them, thinking what they mean, researching it, checking it out, coming to the teachings, going here, going there, until you feel confident you've found your little lineage, as they say. You found your lineage, your path. And that just takes time. You can't force it. And we always worry. We think, well, how do I know if I've made the right decision? We feel that because it's spiritual. Well, if you don't know you've made the right decision yet, then clearly you're not ready. You can't force, you know. So what I was going to do is hopefully find in this book here, in my iPad, it's on Kindle. They don't have pages, they have locations. It's most confusing. Do you have pages on a proper Kindle? Nobody has a Kindle?
No, I have a Kindle.
An actual Kindle. And it has page numbers, or on this one it calls them locations.
Yeah, I think it has locations.
Very bizarre. I can't
It's
explain
common
it.
to all ebooks.
Huh?
It's common to all ebooks. They do it that way.
No, it's not. iBooks has page numbers. iBooks, your iPad one, has page numbers. They don't have locations, they have page numbers. Anyway, who to regard as your guru? But this book is the heart of the path, Seeing the Guru as the Buddha, by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, published by Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. And it's a compilation of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachings on Guru devotion over the last 20, 30 years, I'd say, based upon the Lam Rim outline, based upon the tradition in the Gelugpas, which is similar to the tradition in all the Tibetans. So as Rinpoche says, we establish a Dharma connection with someone when we have decided that they're our teacher. Just hearing teachings from somebody does not mean they're your teacher. Oh my God, I've got a guru now, I didn't mean to get that. No, you have to decide. You're the boss, it can't happen from its own side. You can listen to lots of teachings, but you decide. You make a connection, So once you've decided clearly, this is I'm a disciple, and here's the Lama. You've kind of made that Dharma connection. It's kind of like in your mind, you've sort of, shaken hands on it, done your part of the contract. Yeah, so you have to. So you listen and you check up. That's the point. You listen and check up until you're confident. And there's no hurry, You can have many teachers. They talk about, like I mentioned last night, they talk about your root guru. This is the term they use in Tibetan. It's like I like to call it, kind of your mummy lama, the one who moves your heart most. You can have more than one. I've got two, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa. They're my heart lamas. But another part of you sees them all your lamas, as a manifestation of the Buddha's mind, the Dharmakaya. That's just, you have to cultivate that view. It doesn't come naturally. So clearly, what is in this relationship? You say you have a teacher. Well, again, it's obvious. If my mother's my cooking teacher, I'm not getting her to show me how to play tennis. I mean, she might be good at tennis, but my relationship is based on cooking. So I've had to check up on her, make sure she's valid, knows what she's talking about, checked her reputation, checked her own disciples, her students, my sisters who learned how to make cakes. Then I have confidence in my mother, and then I ask her, back off, get my ego out of the way and say, please mum, show me how to make a cake. If I start saying, what do you mean 6 eggs, and why not this, and how come that, then why bother asking you in the first place? And that's why you've got to be confident the person's valid, because then you will be prepared to shut your mouth and listen. But if you're always second guessing, what does he mean by that, and how does he know what he's talking about, that means you're not ready yet. It means he's not your teacher yet. You can't have it both ways. And that's why, repeatedly I'm saying, it's got to be based on this decision you make of who is your Lama has to be based on your confidence. You have to be confident. Let's say 6 people come along and criticize him to you. If you haven't got confidence, if you haven't really checked up, then you go, oh, maybe he's not good after all. If your mind is like that, that means you haven't checked properly. Whereas if you've checked up, and let's say I've checked up on my mother and I'm confident she's a good cake maker, even if 6 people criticize her cakes, I will listen to their opinion, I will relax, and I will know that that's their business, but I will continue to have confidence because I am confident. I can't stress this enough. Because we're all such children. We all waver. We've got so much attachment. And we want to make everybody happy. So as soon as someone disagrees with us, we'll get nervous, Then we'll go follow that crowd. Then we'll go follow that crowd. We're all like, what are they called? We're like sort of sheep. We've got to have confidence. We're not used to this. It's not arrogance. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean stubborn. It doesn't mean you like a person. I don't care who doesn't like him. I like him. It's not the point. I don't care if you like or not like. That's not the issue. It's being confident that what they're going to teach you is what you want and it's valid. I can't stress it enough. then whatever you hear, it won't disturb your mind. And this is what happens. A number of people who commit to lamas, because they get all excited when they first meet them, then they hear some mean things about them, then they freak out and have a mental breakdown, then they sue them, then they blame them. I mean, we've got to grow up here, you know. We're not children, we're not 5. We love to blame somebody. So we've got to be really careful, you know, in choosing. I just can't stress it enough. Which means we have to be confident. You know, if you decided the Dalai Lama is a valid person, then you go to live in China, among all the communists, all you hear is this monster, this evil person, this splittist. All you ever hear around you. You might got to be really comfortable and content and know that you have devotion to the Dalai Lama, and you be quiet, you listen to all these people complaining, it doesn't affect your mind once you're confident. If you're at the stage of still checking, that's fine. Listen to their opinions, but then go check up and see who's right. Then you make a decision. Because someone's always going to, I mean, you know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche is most unusual insofar in his behaviour. He would, you know, now because he's had a stroke and things, not so much because they make him rest, but he would happily teach for 18 hours without a break. He would teach you till 3 in the morning. He might start the teaching till 3 in the morning. Now, in normal worldly terms, you'd sue a person. If you go to a class and you don't get what you want, you'd be really upset, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? I mean, wouldn't you? So it's most unusual behaviour. So if you're not confident that Lama Zopa Rinpoche is a valid person, I mean, I've heard people tear their hair out. How can he be a holy person? Doesn't he realise we're all tired? How can he do this to us? We people say. Now, if he is an egomaniac, that's a true statement. You see my point? He's sitting there excited about his own words and forcing you to stay there till 3 in the morning. If he is like that, then it's true he is a monster, in which case, back off. Thanks a lot, mate. Goodbye. But if he isn't, if he is a valid person, indeed an unusual one, but valid, genuine knowledge holder, and this is the part that's so tricky, you know. There you are, so there I am, sitting there at 3 in the morning, absolutely exhausted, my body killing me, agonising, waiting for the end, so desperate, trying to sit there and try to enjoy the teachings, but just cannot wait for the end. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche starts doing his dedication prayers. And 1 hour later, you've still got dedication prayers pouring out his mouth so fast, in English, you can't understand the word he's saying. And you can't believe he's going to say another one. And then he thinks of something else to say. And another 2 hours later, you just can't believe it's happening. Are we communicating?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm not confident, if I've not done my research, if I haven't checked up on this person, having first met him. One time, 2 of my sisters, all of my sisters don't like Buddhism. There's 6 of them. They all don't like Buddhism. Some even actively hate it. We don't talk about it, so it's okay. They love me. But 2 of them went to one of his teachings. And one of them, Jan, just sat there, loved him, didn't mind, couldn't understand a word he was saying, he was coughing, she thought he loved his energy. Another sister couldn't stand, she stormed out, she was just completely freaked out. She could not stand the sight of him. So I mean, it's quite, when you have examples like this, and it happens to be, if you check reputation, Lama Zopa, from the Dalai Lama down, seems to have a good reputation. So you can be confident, in spite of your own experience. You know, if he was a nobody that no one had ever heard of, you'd have no basis for thinking he was a valid Lama, according to behaviour. You couldn't, possibly. So at least with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you can see he's got a good reputation. All the way, all the Lamas, all the monasteries, the Dalai Lama down, they all praise him. They all say he's good, you know. So that can give you some confidence. But so then this is the point about now relationship with your teacher. This is the key to how you use your Lama in the best way to help you develop your mind, which is the reason you're in that relationship. The only reason you're in that relationship is to help you become a Buddha. There's no other reason. That's it. There's no other reason. That's it. So because we're dealing with our mind, because the mind is the expertise of the Lama, that's their expertise. That's what they're there for. They're a knowledge holder about the mind, about the universe, about how things exist. In particular, your mind, the mind, because that's the basis in Buddhism. Then that means they have to know your mind, which implies they know their mind, because that's what a knowledge holder is. So if their job, this is that's why you have to use logic. You've decided this person is your Lama. You've decided this, which means you want them to show you how to become a Buddha. That's their job. You've given them that job. They didn't force it on you. That's why, again, the one of confidence. They didn't force it on you. It took me 8 years of being around Lama Zopa Rinpoche before my mind was ready to see him as my Lama. So he was just there, you know, kind of hello, like this, nothing. Kind of backed off, you know. Lama Yeshe was my main Lama, and then when Lama Yeshe passed away, Lama Zopa was like behind Lama Yeshe. You know, I could see Lama Yeshe. He was the one I related to. So I even had a dream when I first became a nun that one Lama said, about Lama Zopa. Oh yeah, he's the Lama who will lead you to enlightenment, he said, from my dream. But my mind wasn't, my heart wasn't ready. So I didn't see him anyway. So he didn't interfere. He backed off. He was just, hello Robina, how are you? And cracked jokes. But after 8 years, my mind changed and I realised he was my Lama. So then whatever. Then he became different. Then, in other words, I gave him permission to start bossing me around. He wouldn't until then, because I'm the boss, you know. And I mean that in a good way. So if I've given Lama Zopa permission, I have given Lama Zopa permission. I basically said, hey Lama Zopa, I want you to lead me to enlightenment. That means I've given you permission to mess with my mind. Hear my point there. Not in some cosmic way, you know. I've given him permission to point out to me my mind. Because why? Because that's what's getting in, you know, my rubbish is what's getting in my way to prevent me from being a Buddha. So his job is that. So according to our capacity. I mean, Lama Yeshe, for example, some people who knew him all the years just saw him as the sweetest, nicest, kindest, most gentle person. That is not the Lama Yeshe I saw. Of course I saw that Lama Yeshe, but I saw another Lama Yeshe too. Quite tough, no nonsense, no messing around, no pussyfooting with me, cut to the chase. Obviously my mind needed that, you know. And it's like with my Kung Fu teacher. I was honoured when he shouted at me. I didn't feel upset. He clearly could see I wanted his Kung Fu, you know. So he gave me his Kung Fu. Lama Yeshe, my Lamas, in my case, the same. So Lama's over there, he is, upsetting my mind, basically, as we would say it. This is a deluded world. The delusions are so primordial in our minds. The appearance, the appearance of self-existence, the appearance of out there things happening to me is so intense, is so absolutely, utterly complete. This is what samsara means. So this is our practice in daily life, to attempt not to project onto other people. We can see it, it's massive. We can see how hard it is. But this is what we're really doing with the Lama. This is where we do this practice to the nth degree, to the best of our ability. And if we can do it there, it helps us to do it in every other way. And really you could say, it's actually based upon, you know, the idea of emptiness. That whatever appears out there is your karmic appearance. Literally the result of your past actions, the formulation of your mind, the configuration of your mind as a result of your past actions, that this thing appears to you like that now. So people who don't have, you know, who didn't mind sitting cross-legged until 3 in the morning and would sit there listening to Lama Zopa's teachings blissful, because they had a different mindset, they weren't unhappy. They sat there quite blissful for 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Well, there's me sitting there freaking out, doing everything in my power not to dump it on Lama Zopa. Hearing, you know, because anger was rising strongly, aversion to the pain, you know, and the tiredness. Because the minute attachment doesn't get what it wants, upset arises. So intellectually we know this. So there I am sitting in the presence of this person called Lama Zopa Rinpoche, whom I have chosen as my Lama. He didn't force himself on me. I've decided. So that means I want to make the most of him. Now I can walk out any time I like. No one's stopping me. No one's saying I should sit. There's nobody chaining me to the floor. So and this is again the one of being accountable and taking responsibility. I've chosen Lama Zopa. I know what he's like. I've heard about him already. I've chosen him. I want him to show me my mind. Well, honey, guess what? He's shown me my mind. Perfect. Thank you, Lama Zopa. So, but that's really hard to say to yourself when you're upset, when you're angry. All you want to do is put it onto the person in front of you. This is what we do. This is what samsara is. So this is the most powerful practice. And who is the beneficiary of this? Me. Of course. Rabina's not complaining. He can sit there till 6 in the morning and teach if he wants. I don't have to be there. So I'm the beneficiary of this, because every second my mind is receiving something it doesn't like, my mind is purifying. And I choose to sit there, and I choose to work on my mind. Then I get some benefit from my guru, whom I've chosen. So it's not easy. And this is the one, they call it in Tibetan pure view. In Buddhism, they call it pure view. Really means simply understanding some semblance of emptiness and understanding, therefore, some semblance of karma, that everything is our karmic appearance. That whatever's appearing in front of us, the way it appears to us, is to do with what's in our own mind. This is Buddha's fundamental teaching. It's fundamental. They call it certain things in the teachings, like seeing the Guru as the Buddha, having pure view. But hear the meaning of it logically. Everything that appears to us, we created. This is the meaning of karma. It's Buddha's fundamental teaching. We can't get past it. So where we apply this, and where the most power for ourselves in applying it, is in relation to the person we have decided is our Lama. The embodiment of the qualities we are trying to accomplish. And the more I'm able to do that, the more quickly I'll get the results. They say Guru devotion is the basis of all realizations. It's hard to hear this. It sounds superstition to us. Oh yeah, being more devoted and slurping and yes, 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 holy, holy, holy. It doesn't mean that. It means this. Not believing in what you're seeing. Seeing it as a teaching. So one of you would be quite strong with me. Shout. I've got 2 options. One is, who do you think you are? How dare you shout at me? Or 2, wow, what's he showing my mind? You know, how interesting. So which is beneficial for my mind? Obviously. It's obvious what's beneficial for my mind. But you see, in the West, because we're so obsessed with blame, we're so obsessed with people harming us, and they have no right to harm us, and who do they think they are? It's true, the world is full of awful people. There is no doubt about that. When we know that, we can be cautious. But because we're living in a world that blames, and we love to blame, we're addicted to being a victim. We love being a victim because we love to blame people. The world is full of monsters. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying there aren't many crazy people out there, and there are many people who call themselves spiritual who are not spiritual, who are maniacs. This is why we have to grow up. We have to take responsibility. We have to be cautious. No one's forcing us. We love to blame them. We love the thing of cults and how dare these monster gurus and how dare they do this, and we love to criticize them and expose them on websites. Excuse me, grow up please. Who says, where does it written that the world is full of perfect people? Of course there are crazy people out there who aren't valid lamas, who aren't valid teachers. Of course there are. What do you think? Where do you think you live? In paradise? It's called samsara. It stinks. Full of garbage, full of monstrous people, full of delusions. Be cautious, that's all. You're the boss, babe. You're an adult. You're a grown-up. You're not 5. I can't stress this enough. I say those words a lot, I do know, but I cannot stress this enough. This idea of accountability. Being grown up. We are the boss. We make the choice. And then when we've made that choice, then my commitment is to have pure view. And who will be benefit? Who will be beneficiary? Me. So simple. We have to really want that. When I really want the result, which is my pure mind, when I really want the result, which is my delusion smashed, obviously I'm going to end up preferring somebody who smashes my delusions. Bodhisattvas would rather live with somebody who hates them than who likes them. Not because they're masochists, because that's, you know, that's the quickest way to smash ego. The job of being a Buddhist is to smash your ego. Most of us are not brave enough. We're so timid. We want to be pussyfooted and touched and stroked and loved and soft and sweet. Fine. Good to have that. We need it. We've got to get strong at some point when we're ready, you know. We've got to. This is what transforming problems means. This is what this marvelous practice of patience means. It's actually greeting the problem as a good thing. It's the quickest method to smash ego. So sitting there at 3 in the morning with my guru, whom I've chosen. There he is teaching. Okay, up to my mind, you know. Check my mind. Because there's always in life, there's always two things going on. One is the stuff dancing in front of you. From the second you get up in the morning until the moment you go to sleep, there's something in front of you dancing along. It's life, isn't it? It's called external life. Cars and people and red lights and trees and bombs and murders and children and ugly people and nice people. All bopping in front of you all day, right? And then there's your mind interpreting it. That's practice. Changing your interpretation. That's it. It's we've got to be it's clear, but we've got to be so kind of disciplined in our logic about ego. You've got to be, ego is ruthless in its manipulation to get what it wants. It will do anything to defend itself. Anything. So we've got to be ruthless with it. Wisdom in the mind, your wisdom roommate's got to be ruthless with all these manipulators, you know. Smash them in the nose. And the person who can do that most quickly is the one you've chosen as your guru, because he's the one you've given the power to. I've asked my lamas to please show me my mind. I'm so happy when they do, like my Kung Fu teacher, showing me my Kung Fu. So happy. And of course it's tough. Giving up delusions is terrifying. That's what practice is. What do you think practice is? Sitting on your bum watching your breath? That's not practice. Seeing your attachment and your anger and your fears and your jealousy and your depression and realizing that that's what's breaking your heart. That's what your enemy is. This is tough. Oh my goodness, so tough. I was trying to read some rubbish, I wasn't raving on here. So I'm trying to get a list of the qualities of a valid guru, not this wretched. Might be a bit better, yes. Kindle doesn't work so well. I would like it, yeah. Chapter 6 and onwards, chapter 6, chapter 7. Thank you. Thanks, sweetheart. Okay. Who to regard as the guru, okay. The benefits of correct devotion. Okay. Importance of devotion. Why are we able to see? Okay. I can't find it. Where would I find all the qualities of a guru? Does anybody know this book very well? I don't.
Is there an index?
What do we, hang on. Yeah, I'll have a look. Must be. 4 general benefits of guru. Receiving guru devotion protects. Power, checking. Qualities. Okay, here we go. Qualities. 29. Okay. Okay. Must be listed here somewhere. Okay. Qualities of a Mahayana guru. Qualities of a Mahayana guru. So in the Ornament of Mahayana Sutras, Maitreya Buddha mentions 10 qualities that a virtuous friend, which is a synonym for the term guru, and Amazon Brahmacharya uses that a lot, virtuous friend should have in order to reveal the Mahayana teachings. Rely upon a virtuous friend who is subdued, pacified, and highly pacified, has greater knowledge, has perseverance, is learned in scripture, has realized emptiness, is skillful in teachings, has a compassionate nature, and has abandoned discouragement. Okay, so this is the point, and as you've got right here, a little note, perfect question, how do you know? This gets me right back to the first step. Right back to this is the trick, it's like a catch-22 for us, you know. They give all the qualities, best is to have a Buddha. That sounds perfect. Oh yeah, I'd like a Buddha, please. Please find me a Buddha, you know. Well, how do I know then we go, well, how do I know he's a Buddha? That's when you're stuck. So this is right back, I have to stop again, right back to this first point about my mother being my cake guru. Because I'd never made a cake before, I had no experiential knowledge of cakes, period, except to taste them. But I had no experiential knowledge of cakes. That's reasonable, isn't it? So it's a bit of a catch-22 for us. If I've never had an experience of any cakes and don't have a clue the components of a cake, have no idea, don't know anything, and I didn't, then how do I know who is a good cake maker? How do I know? You know, how do I know? How do I trust anybody? Who do I believe is what we say. Who do I believe? You don't believe anybody. What do? All I can do is my research. All I can do. I can't do more. I have to have, and we know this in the West, I'm afraid. We do know this well. We do know this. We know how to do our research. We know how to do our due diligence, how to do our market research, to check up online. We all know it so well. We check and we check. I mean, just to go to one school, people look at the months of time you're looking into it, checking up all the things and the reviews and the this and the people and that, and you meet the teachers and you go see it, you check the feng shui, you do this, you do that, before you decide. So we do understand this, you know. Like a music teacher. You don't know music. How do you know that person won't lead you up a garden path? So even though these are a lot easier to check, look how hard we work to be confident before we put our money into that college and study music for 10 years, you know. So with the Lama, what other way do you have? There's no other method, you know. I did not have any other method when I met these Lamas, met the Buddhist teachings. The first teaching I went to happened to be of Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe, who happen now to be, after all these years, the ones I've chosen as my teachers, and who are my teachers and whose path I'm practicing. So maybe I won the lottery and got a good person. If I look back now and see all their reputation, see the work they've done, I feel very fortunate that I chose somebody valid, you know. So in the beginning, all I had to do was what? I had no wisdom. I was as thick as a post, really ignorant, very proud, very arrogant. Didn't know, knew I wanted something, So listen to Lama Zopa's teachings for 1 month. Listen to Lama Yeshe's teachings for 1 month. Did a retreat, did the meditation, watched the people, heard about their reputation. I didn't have Google then, but checked up, you know. Did this initiation with Lama Yeshe, thought about it, did the practice, went home to Melbourne, did my practice every day, thought about it every day, read the books, thought about it every day. And then one day, the penny kind of dropped. It became clear to me. But I did all the things they said. Checked up, tried to validate, looked at their experience, looked at their behaviour, looked at their students, looked at their words, to attempt to see if their words met their actions. I couldn't do more. I can't do more than that. I can't possibly say that Lama Zopa is a guru, or is a Buddha, or is not. I can't possibly say that. It is an impossibility to say that. We can't do this. We like to say, oh, the Dalai Lama's a Buddha. Well, excuse me, how do you know? I couldn't possibly say he's a Buddha. Unless you're a Buddha also, you cannot say it. But because he's reputed to be a Buddha, then basically we're believing it. So we've got to have more than that mere belief. So you can use logic. So I have checked up on Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe these last years, 35 years of being with them. And so far, so good. They continue to increase in my esteem. They continue to, the teachings I'm practicing, the teachings I'm studying seem to fit together. There seems to be no inconsistency. If I look into myself, not much progress, but hopefully a little bit of progress. The best I can do is that. And then they say, Dalai Lama's the Buddha. I can't tell, but I look at his reputation, and I do all that research. The best I can say is, okay, might be. So this whole business, when we hear about seeing the Guru as a Buddha, it seems kind of too strange to our mind. But if we understand this type of thinking, it's not possible to know he's the Buddha. And when it says best is to have a Buddha, all the 10 qualities, he's got this, he's got that, he's realised emptiness, it's not, you can't tell, it's impossible to know. It is impossible to know. So all you can do is do your research and your checking. And then what do? You have confidence. You have confidence. So when Lama Zopa was sitting there at 3 in the morning, against all normal behaviour, looking like people are upset. I mean, at one time, one teaching in Hong Kong, I remember, by midnight, there's one person left, a few students left, and the hall was full of a couple of hundred people. They're all gone home. Everyone's chatting away. I mean, that's really disturbing the mind if you're looking at ordinary behaviour, you know. I mean, imagine the Dalai Lama, who the world loves. If he started raving on till midnight, he would have nobody on earth would like him, you know. Luckily, he behaves nicely and finishes and ends on time. Begins and ends on time, you know, so we can afford to like him. You know, I'm raving on here a bit. Are we communicating at all in this discussion here?
Robina, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go.
So, one of the other things about, from yesterday and then also from other things I've heard is, so we say the perfect guru would be a Buddha, you know, 10
Yeah,
qualities,
that's
all
right.
that stuff,
That's
emptiness,
right.
yada, yada,
Yeah.
and you can't tell. So, the other part of a proper teacher then is just to make sure that it's someone who has more than you do, right? I mean,
Are you asking or telling?
I'm asking
What's the question?
for some clarification. So,
What's the question?
is another way to look at a teacher or a guru, like you said yesterday in the you know, monks will go to other monks who are two grades ahead of them
That's
and
right.
say, well, you be my teacher.
Sure.
And sure, I'll be your teacher.
Of course.
So the other part of that is if we can't find that perfect, because we don't know if they're perfect or not.
No, see, that's not the attitude.
But-
though. That's not the attitude. That's where the tricky part comes,
Right.
where, because you can never, it's not a question of not finding a Buddha.
Yeah.
You don't know if they're a Buddha. That's the point. You can never find a Buddha because you don't know who is a Buddha. It's an impossibility, is it not? Do you see my point?
I do.
It
Yes,
is an
very much so.
impossibility. So that's where you've got to say, okay, what to do with that?
Okay.
Where do you go with that? And that's where you go with this idea of learning to have confidence
Yeah.
that this guru, this person embodies the Buddha for me. And then to learn to try to understand the meaning of that. Because you can never, ever, ever, unless you're a Buddha, and if you're a
Yeah.
Buddha, you don't need one. You understand?
I do.
So, of course, so the minimum you can have, of course, anything you want to learn, it has to be obviously from a person who knows more than you. Even 1 grade more in music, they can show you something. Which is why, just as an incidental point, we often think, oh, I don't know anything. But if you know 1 sentence more than someone else, you can help that person with that 1 sentence. So, of course, that has to be. But this is why, for me, these qualifications are really too bizarre. Not bizarre. They're too, that you can't implement them. Because you don't know who is a Buddha. You don't even know who's a bodhisattva. You don't even know who's realised emptiness. You don't know. You only know by reputation. And that's the only thing I can think about. It's sort of like smoke and mirrors. You know, I've got confidence in Lama Yeshe Lama Zopa, let's say, and then another Lama since then, indeed including His Holiness. But I can't say I know definitively until I realise those things. But that's okay, because you go 1 step at a time, and as long as you keep getting more benefit from it, and you continue to see qualities, and I can certainly say that with my 2 lamas, the more I know them, the more qualities I do observe, which is maybe an indication of my progress. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the more I see His Holiness, the more I have confidence in Him. The more it does seem that He is what they say. So all we can do is this, you know. But the key to this is my confidence. The key to this is my confidence and using my common sense and being reasonable. I'm not trying to be tricky here, you know. It's important to look at the qualities, and we should check. Like any decent music teacher, you've got to know that they know how to play the violin, they've got a decent violin, they have good students. You've got to check it off, tick it off. You've got to have that, and that's reasonable in a worldly sense. We've got to see who's a valid teacher, you know. So, for example, I mean, let's say, I'm just thinking now, because I saw Therese, and she's transcribing, she works with Alex Berzin on his website. Now, he's not one of my teachers, but anybody with half a brain who knows a little bit about Dharma reads Alex Berzin, you can tell he's valid. From the bit that you know, and I didn't know that at the beginning, but the more you learn yourself, the more you, actually, there's another point actually, the more you do practice, the more you are then qualified yourself to judge who's right and who's wrong, you know. Like I can say, Alex Berzin, if I want an answer, I check Alex Berzin's website. I might like his words sometimes, he's got interesting translation terms, but it seems to me he's on the case. He's got it accurate, he quotes this one, he quotes that one, he says this is, you can just get this, you know logically that he's a valid, he's not raving on, you know. And that comes slowly, the more, so in the beginning it's almost like in the beginning you really don't know what you're doing. So you really got to check carefully. So I look back on, say, Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe, and I'm feeling very blessed that I made a good choice, that I bumped into them first, you know. How fortunate I was. I hear of some people, they choose this guru, then they're feeling messed up, and then this centre will collapse, and this person got accused of something, and they don't know whether they don't know where they're going. You know, it's very confusing. So it's like, I'm just chatting here, you understand? Just talking. You've got to look at the qualifications. They've got to know more than you, of course they do. And the more they know, the better. They've just done their 25 years in the Geshe program, and they've just meditated for 25 years, and everyone says they realise emptiness. You can feel very good that you like that person. And there's a lot of, and okay, that's one more point I'm making here, I think. I might never know if the Dalai Lama is what they say he is, which is a Buddha. But logic also includes, well, Lama Zopa says he's valid. And if I've checked on Lama Zopa, then that's using logic. It is still by hearsay, but it's using logic. Because if I've checked on Lama Zopa, and Lama Zopa says he's cool, and that's the best we can do, really. And that's pretty good already. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So, of course, we've got to look at the list. But you can't prove it. But, you know, as you keep going, you should have pure morality. Should be pacified through the higher training of concentration. He should be able to control his delusions by having realised calm abiding. Highly pacified relates to the higher training actually of having special insight into emptiness. Should we have greater knowledge or realizations than the disciple? That's obvious. Can't benefit. So, I mean, we need to go through this list like we would for a nurse teacher or anybody teaching us anything. You've got to have certain qualifications. And then what can you do, including the music teacher, including the cake teacher? You've got to go by inference. You've got to go by reputation and the students and the things you hear about them, because you don't have any direct experience on them. But once you have a few years of listening to emptiness teachings, and then you go to various teachers, based on the teachings you've had so far, you can make your own calls. You can hear a person teach on emptiness and say, no, they're on the wrong track here. As you get better and better yourself, you have more and more experience to base your decisions on, don't you? So it's not a contradiction. But to say, you know, he has to have emptiness, you can't. So you've got to ask somebody who you do trust. So again, it's like smoke and mirrors. You've got to start trusting somebody first. And that person you've got to check so carefully. And that's always the most difficult step, the first step, you know. Are we communicating here? Yeah. Any questions, Stephen? No?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go.
I'm kind of feeling like there's like an all or nothing thing when you take somebody as your teacher. And I mean, I'm thinking of, well, suppose you want to be a concert pianist, right? And you find somebody, you know, maybe they're not good enough to teach you to be a concert pianist, but they can teach you an awful lot.
Yes.
Right. And so you're learning from them.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking with the spiritual teacher, do you need to always take them
as a teacher?
Ultimately, as a Buddha, do you need to see them as a Buddha to take them as a teacher?
I understand.
And learn a lot from them?
Uh-huh.
But you might not be ready to say, you know, I can see this person as a Buddha yet, or maybe I...
No, I think that, well, okay. You see, this is why I'm not using those words even here, because I want to just talk in this way to try and unpack all these ideas and not be superstitious about them. What it means seeing the person as Buddha. What I was saying before about sitting there at 3 in the morning with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, me freaking out, me being angry, me being upset, seeing my mind want to blame the person in front of me and then struggling with that. In other words, developing pure view. Pure view means not believing in my karmic appearances. Pure view means, it means look at my mind. It means that. And I think we won't understand that until we begin to understand the Bodhisattva path, which is where you hear about great beings being reborn in a certain life, looking like some old smelly homeless person, but is a highly realised being. So then the idea of having pure view, which really does mean, quotes, seeing them as the Buddha, we have some basis for understanding that intellectually, which is not just some cosmic idea. So if it's possible, if reincarnation is true, if karma is true, if the Bodhisattva path is possible, which is that a person can go beyond ego, have renunciation, realise emptiness, have bodhicitta, have the power to manifest again and again in ordinary lives to purify their mind, they could be that smelly homeless person. Now, what do I see with my eyes? A smelly homeless person. I don't see a holy being with a halo, right? So we have to first see that that's a possibility, that a person can manifest as a regular Joe. You understand? If that's a possibility, then we're moving towards the possibility, who knows who that person is? As the Tibetans all say, if you're not clairvoyant, you do not know who that person is. So then we can say, get to the point where we can say the words, they could be the Buddha. That's not too much of a shock for our mind. So when we just hear, oh, see the Guru as the Buddha, it seems so scary and we don't know how to think about it logically. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then if I'm thinking, Lama Zopa, there he is. He's even said to be a Lama. He's got high realizations and here's me still being angry and upset. So it's not that difficult to fix my mind and realize it's my delusions, it's my attachment, it's my anger. Thank you, Lama Zopa. That's not too difficult. But if it's that smelly homeless person, whom I'm believing is a smelly homeless person, because I see a smelly homeless person, don't tell me they're a holy person. Come on, they're a smelly homeless person. Then I'm locked in samsara, aren't I? And yet, this is the point I'm saying. You hear all these stories about the Buddhas manifesting in ordinary forms. All these constant stories. So with a basis in understanding the possibility of emptiness, the possibility of karma, continuity of consciousness, and bodhicitta, then it's not such of a leap to get to the point where you can see the absolute advantage to me of saying, my Guru is the Buddha. Who do you think benefits from this? What does it actually mean? It actually means, if I think in my mind, Lama Zopa is the Buddha manifesting, then I get the benefit of having a teaching directly from an enlightened being. The smelly homeless person could be an enlightened being if we understand that possibility. But if I see him as a smelly homeless person, he tells me what to do, and I go, huh, who do you think you are? Who gets benefit? I get zero. So this is the point about pure view. It's all about emptiness, and it's about the possibility of things not being as they appear to us. When we understand this, then it's easy to say the thought, which is the teaching here, the Guru is the Buddha. We can see the logic of what it means. I don't want to say those words. I'm trying to unpack it, you know. Are you seeing what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so of course the Lamas talk about how this, and once you've made a commitment to a Lama, you always see them as the Buddha, and you know your relationship with one Guru affects your relationship with all the Gurus, because all the Gurus are the manifestation of the Dharmakaya, blah, blah, blah. It's quite complex stuff. We should study it carefully, know what we're talking about, not just hear it as religious stuff we swallow whole, you know, as superstition, which is how we think of it in the West. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe I don't know if I'm missing what you're saying or
Yeah.
not, because I'm thinking, well, what if I hear something from a teacher that just doesn't seem right to
Okay.
me? And it could
But
be
okay,
that I'm...
stop right there, stop. Good point. Perfect point. Perfect point. Have you decided this person is your Guru or not?
No.
Okay, then
But
that person's not your teacher then. We're discussing a person whom you have decided, having done your research with immense confidence, and you have decided this person is valid. That's my point, Bob. That is my point. That is my point. That is my point. Once you are confident, then you can, once you're confident the Dalai Lama is the Buddha, then you can go to China and live around a bunch of Dalai Lama haters and your mind will be undisturbed. But if you're still checking on the Dalai Lama and you only live among Chinese communists, then you'll be really wavering, won't you? So you have to be confident. But you say a teacher, sure, if you see a quality in a teacher and they're not your teacher, well then back off from them, please. I agree with you. But honey, if you have made a decision, they are your teacher. Normal behaviour would suggest you don't keep people up for a lecture until 3 in the morning. Wouldn't you agree? And normal behaviour would be that that's rude manners. It's considered bad manners. Well, excuse me, there's a quality that I don't think is very cool. So what am I going to do with that? If he's my Guru, I see it as my practice. Who gets the benefit? Robina. If he's not my Guru, I can say, see you mate, I'm leaving, bye, enjoyed your company. In which case, it's cool. Are you seeing my point here?
Yeah, I'm thinking, is there an in-between before you've taken some...
What's the in-between where? Which point?
Where before in your mind you're taking somebody as a guru, you're still listening to what they say.
Of course, that's
learning
what the
from
first
them
point that Lama Zopa
before
says. You don't have to.
Right.
You can get immense benefit from thousands of teachers.
Okay.
Of course you can.
Okay, I guess that's what I was...
But of course you can. You get so much, so many good teachers around. You can read books, you can learn, you can get so much. But the point all the Lamas make, and this is where this teaching is subtle, really needs thinking, is that once you do decide that they're the Buddha, that's where the benefit comes for your mind. You open the door to realizations with your ability to do that. Are you understanding my point?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a tricky point, you know. Not an easy point. Yeah.
So I have a hypothetical. Is it okay to...
Whatever, darling, say it.
Suppose a person gains confidence in a guru. He gains confidence that this person is his guru. And conventionally speaking, hypothetically, he's wrong about it. The person is not good, is a bad person, and he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have gained that confidence, okay?
So what do you do then, mean?
Well, not only what do you do then, but is it possible that it would still be benefit to my mind of seeing whatever mistakes I think I see as they're not mistakes?
Precisely.
So it would
Precisely.
Would still be a benefit to your mind.
What do you mean still? Only benefit. Only benefit. Only
So it's
benefit.
really something that you're doing. It's really
That's
something...
the point, dear. Yeah, you've hit it on the head. It's something you're doing. It's your private business. Yes, that's the point.
Programming my own mind.
Programming your own mind. Because there's two options. You think, what a creep, how dare he do that? Which disturbs your mind because it's called anger. Or you have pure view. How sensible. When we really realise this is about our mind, then we'll get the point. But we're so obsessed with the external and good and bad and blame and how dare and evil and cults and this and they're all manipulating me and how dare they and this and blah and he this and she this and he this, which is the deluded view of samsara. This is why it's so hard to hear this point.
It's scary to me. It really is. I feel fear when I think about this.
Oh, you just feel fear of everything. Everything you say, you felt fear.
I know.
I'm
I'm full
sensitive
of
mind,
it.
darling. It's okay. This is ordinary life. Listen. This is where it is difficult. In Tantra, the highest level of Lord Buddha's teachings, one of the essential teachings is that we see it, we're suffering because we see everything as mundane. From eons of negative karma, we live in these dumpy, walking sewer bodies, looking like a bunch of apes, you know, with delusions and violence and anger and bombs and murderers and this terrible, awful suffering nightmare that we live in, as well as the good stuff. But we can see the suffering, right? Due to negative karma, everything looks so grotesque and gross and coarse and ugly. Tantra is all about lifting our game psychologically and attempting to identify with our future potential of Buddhahood, seeing ourselves as a blissful, radiant light being, seeing all beings as Buddhas, seeing all sound as mantra, seeing all the universe as a pure land. It's a practice that lifts your mind. Your practice, your commitment is you see all the evil people as wrathful Buddhas who are out there to teach you. You see all the peaceful people as peaceful Buddhas. It's a whole other view. But of course, you've got to be grounded and intelligent and understand attachment and anger and jealousy and the delusions and emptiness and bodhicitta to do this properly. But it's really common sense and very profound method of cutting the karmic appearances of junk, you know. Because it's all about the mind. Every level of this, every stage is about the mind for the Buddha. Your mind. How we see things. How the world exists. What creates it. Whereas we think it's all out there from its own side. You know, it's all happening to me. Poor me. There's nothing to be afraid of when you're in charge of your own life and you have confidence and you go one step at a time. There is nothing to be afraid of. When you realise emptiness, there's no fear. So we're moving towards that, you know.
Following up on that question, so what matters is how you make commitment, and then how you take that teaching with you, whether the guru or the teacher
Is bad or
is
good.
available. So can I say that it doesn't really, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether the teacher is good or bad. It's all up to you. The whole experience, how you take it,
Yeah, I know.
beneficial to your mind.
In one sense you can say that, but that's dangerous because then you can think anybody can lead me to enlightenment. But, you know, a person will lead you to hell, so don't choose them. But if you've got this view, okay, this is how the Lamas say it, and it seems so scary. He's going to be scared again. Get scared. This is how they say, once you've committed, made this Vajra commitment, especially you've taken initiation, for example, from a Lama, you know, then you keep your pure view. So that's shocking for us in the world because we want to find blame. We think that is a monstrous thing to do. But it's got, you don't have to speak it. Okay, let me give you my own example, all right? One of my lamas. 35 years ago, 33 years ago, I was taking, whatever it was, 35, just to give you some context, when my first job at our centre in England, the Centre of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa. And they invited one of their own fellow students of their Lama to be the resident teacher. Well, it turned out that there was a big schism at the centre, and that effectively that teacher took the centre. And then since that time, that teacher has gone against His Holiness the Dalai Lama and does practices that His Holiness says not to do. So lots of politics and just, putting it in Buddhist terms, negative karma ripening, okay? So I was at that centre. I took that Lama as one of my teachers. I took initiation from him. So I made this commitment. My mind has never changed, ever once, even though he's gone against the Dalai Lama, gone against Lama Zopa, gone against Lama Yeshe, taken their centre. Do you understand what I'm saying? My mind is comfortable. I have never criticised any one of his students who are my Vajra brothers and sisters. I've got a tantric vow never to speak the faults of my Vajra brothers and sisters. I never have. I don't find any fault in him. I say the facts. He took the centre. They're facts. They're not opinions, okay? But my mind is content. I leave it there. And I think he is doing whatever is beneficial for sentient beings. I haven't seen him for 30 years. I haven't taken any teachings. But my mind is content. I'm not running around running after him and being all emotional. My mind is clear. He is the Buddha teaching me something. And my mind is calm and comfortable. So I haven't polluted my own mind, which is the point. That's the point.
That makes sense.
So we've got to use our common sense. Got to use our noggin, got to use our brains, got to not be scared. He's not going to have a mental breakdown already. My mind is comfortable. I leave it there. I leave it there. I don't have to speak it out. I don't have... You see, we're obsessed with thinking we have to have an opinion about everybody and everything in the universe. We think we have to have it, and we've got to reconcile it all. Do you understand? No, we don't. Back off and relax. Deal with what you can deal with. Keep your mind comfortable. Be pure. Don't find fault. But use your common sense. If you see a gunman coming, get the hell out of his way. Don't go, oh, he's really the Buddha coming. He might be. But use your common sense. You understand? Watch people like a hawk. Listen to the teachings. See what they do. Listen to the teachers. But once you've committed, it's a great practice. It's a great practice to think... Because, you know, attachment, you see, this is the point when we understand attachment, which, is this junkie in us that's completely living in terror every second, and it only ever wants what it wants, frantically. The millisecond it gets what it doesn't want, we literally have a mental breakdown, and that's what anger is. Aversion, anger, and fear. So we've got to be grown up, you know, and actually accept that things mightn't appear the way we like them. Including people who are labelled spiritual teachers, including our spiritual teacher, not doing what my attachment was. I mean, how dare Lama Zopa sit there at 3 in the morning and make me upset? That's basically what's happening. Well, how dare this other Lama behave in a way that I don't understand? How dare he do that? Is how a baby mind thinks. Well, relax, back off. There are more things to the world than we can all understand. When I've got some wisdom, I'll work it all out then. Meanwhile, protect myself, be clear, be sensible, and just keep practicing Dharma. Then who gets the benefit? Me! Are we communicating, people?
Yes.
Are we communicating here? Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay. That's what I'm learning anyway. From all this stuff. I start to read it and then I rave on again. This is how I've tried to interpret it, you understand? Any questions? Really, if you have any doubts what I'm saying, you've got to ask, please. It's a really good opportunity to do it. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. That's why we've got to be cautious, you know. We've got to be really, really cautious. What, Sharon? Is that a question?
No,
No.
I'm just shaking.
Okay, good.
Cautious.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, yeah, well, who are you? Oh, yes, sweetheart. Here you go, go.
Just simple question. So in Tibetan tradition,
Tibetan
right?
tradition.
Yeah, the lamas reincarnate.
Yes, that's
So
right.
we have continuous reincarnations of
That's
lamas.
right, that's right.
How does a new lama come about?
What?
How does a new lama come about?
Which Lama?
New one.
You. Well, I can tell you the story about Lama Yeshe, shall I? Were you here yesterday?
No.
No, okay. We talked about Lama Ursel, the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe.
Yeah. heard of
Or I can talk about Lama Zopa, you know. The ones the two I know. Yes. Is it about this?
Yes, I think
What's it? Give him the,
maybe I'm wrong.
what's it? Give him the mic, please. Do you have a question?
Are you asking how a new Tolka is recognized? Someone that has never been recognized
Right.
before?
Yeah.
No, he's not meaning that. He doesn't mean
Yeah,
it the first
that's
time.
what he
He's not
said.
saying that.
That's-
He just in general, how a talk is recognised.
Rabina,
Oh,
he just said
that's
that's
what
what
he
he
said.
said.
No, that is
Huh?
That's what he just said. He just-
What?
Yeah.
How does a teacher who wasn't a Lama before becomes a Lama, who called Lama, recognizes Lama? And then-
Yeah.
By your behaviour, by how you work, by how you practice.
But
That's
there
what
must
Lama
be
means.
others, Lama were teachers who recognize him and giving him that name Lama.
No,
Okay.
no. Students give teacher the name Lama.
Oh, okay.
It's not for existing from its own. So you don't get like a certificate. Now you're a Lama. You become a Lama. A person becomes a Lama when students ask them to be their teacher. That's what Lama means. It's an interdependent. It's an interdependent scenario.
Is,
And so then the What, darling?
is the question how one becomes a Rinpoche?
No, whatever. We'll work it out. Thank you. I mean, if that's your question, we can discuss. Is that your question?
Yes, I would
This is
definitely.
the method of how you find somebody you mean. That's what Rinpoche means.
Right.
Rinpoche means precious one,
Someone-
and it's a title of respect often given to those who have been formally recognised as a reincarnated practitioner from the past life.
Someone who's never before been recognized.
Darling,
is
who cares about
newly
that?
learned.
Who cares about that? What's that? It's like you've never passed grade 12 before. Wow. There's always some point you pass grade 12. Now you're a musician. What's the point first? What's that got to do with it? There's one in the beginning again. You're a little self-existentist. I'll just chat about this anyway, and we'll see if it answers your question, shall we?
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Well, first of all, Lama is a term. I mean, okay, Lama Yeshe, I call him Lama Yeshe because he wasn't a Rinpoche, he wasn't a Geshe, we can't call him those things. Actually, he was technically a Rinpoche, but he wasn't recognised because he was the reincarnation of some past abbess. Because he was a girl, you know, these Tibetans. He was recognised by one Lama as the reincarnation of this abbess of this Gelugpa monastery, you know, so the nuns grabbed him and took care of him from the age of 5, then sent him off to Sarajay. So he never was formally recognised. But, you know, already we could see that in that past life he'd done some practice and things, you know, and then chosen this new rebirth, whatever. But with Lama Thubten Yeshe, who he escaped from Tibet, from Lhasa, when he was about 26, 59, 25 actually, he was 25, he was born in 1935. So he was 24, 25, he escaped. So he hadn't finished his studies. You know, he hadn't become a Geshe. He wasn't recognised as Rinpoche. So he was a regular monk, like a regular Tibetan monk, you know. So he was, so the first thing that happened for him, he was at this place, and a mutual guru of his, I mentioned this yesterday, Geshe Rabten, one of the Sarajay Lamas, one of my Lamas too, he put together, I think, or sort of facilitated the coming together of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who was 10 years younger, and he was from Nepal, he's a Sherpa. So he was called a Rinpoche. And he was, okay, so the two stories. So Lama Yeshe was nobody, in that sense, but he was kind of given to, as the teacher, that's often what happens, these little tulkus, all the younger monks are handed over to the older monk, and he becomes like his mummy, you know. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when he was a little boy, apparently his sister said, that every time the mother turned her back, the mother was dead poor, a little kind of peasant lady, you know, chopped wood and ran here and ran there and sold salt and did these things, these Sherpas do. And every time that, you know, she turned her back, little Zopa is crawling up this little hill up to where they know the Laudo cave is. And this cave where the previous Nyingma Lama called Kunsang Yeshe had meditated the last 20 or so years of his life. And he was a regular layman. And he was like a lot of these laymen, a hidden practitioner. Spent the last 20 years, I don't know how long exactly, in this little cave. And this little cave was really just a hole in the wall where they used to store the radishes or the onions. I never work out which. Laudo means radishes or onions. So apparently he pulled out the radishes and kind of moved in, you know, this little hole in the wall. So then he proceeded to practice his practices until the day he died. And anyway, apparently before he passed away, he was asked by all. He became the Lama, the local Lama, these meditators. He was nobody before. He was a regular layman, did a bit of practice, no one called him anything, and this is how you, quotes, become a lama, you know? Like you become anything. You didn't play music at some point, but then you graduated. Now you're a musician. Now people come to you. Same here. He practiced in this cave, and so the local people, because they've got devotion to practitioners, and there he was in his cave every day. And this is one of the interesting, I mean, you're either some weird old homeless person who likes living in a cave on your own, or you're actually doing something about it. You're actually practicing. So he's doing Nyingma practice. He gradually developed these students, and then people would support him, and the mother of his next life, apparently his mother, I think she was one of his attendants or something. He'd go up there and, bring up his tukpa and things like this. So these people all surrounded him and took teachings from him and things like this. And then they requested him to start a school for the local boys, like a monastery. And he said he was too old, but he promised to do it in his next life. So anyway, he gathered these students. He became, in that sense, he became a lama from his own practice. And then a lama is a person who only exists in dependence upon a disciple, and a disciple is the one who says, please show me. He doesn't go out there like we do, putting up his little sign saying, I'm a lama, come and get some teachings. He would sit there quietly minding his own business. If no one asked him, he wouldn't say anything. Do you understand? So he became a lama only because he got disciples. And then they learned and they were impressed by him and then they told somebody else and so on and so forth. So then he passed away, and being a tantric yogi, he was able to pass away, in the tantric way, meaning have complete control over the death process. There's very detailed descriptions of the death process, and these great yogis can do that easily. That means he went to the subtlest level of his mind, where he was in the Dharmakaya, and he was able to realize various realizations. And then these people can choose, because they've got this power, because they've got clairvoyance, they've got all these powers, they've got single point of concentration, they've got these tantric realizations, they can go to the subtlest level of their mind at will. They've got also, therefore, because of this clairvoyance, so they can see exactly where they want to be reborn. So he chose his next rebirth to the mother, to one of these women down the mountain, not very far away. So then the time he could crawl, this little Zopa, he's crawling up to the cave. And every time his mother turned his back, as he got older and he could talk, like, come home, he'd say, no, that is my home, So eventually, and then apparently his sister said the only games he ever played was always as in the role of a lama. He'd sit there making mud bells and ringing bells and making mud pies for tormas, and would have pujas, and he'd even announce, his sister said, that all his benefactors were coming, and he'd give the list of his benefactors from his past life. This is apparently common. So then the mother thought, oh, we better check up on who he is, this little person. So they go to the local lama, who do their divinations, because they're said to be clairvoyant too. They check up and all these different methods. And then they conclude, yes, it would seem he is the reincarnation. So then he's treated like he's called Rinpoche, treated like a tulku. Tulku means emanation body. And then educated and so on and so forth in this system, This is the method. This is how they do it. They've been doing it probably 1,000 years in Tibet. Reincarnation is Buddha's teaching. Everybody reincarnates all the time. But it's only been really established as an institution, it seems like, in Tibet, So Lama Yeshe, as I said, one Lama recognised him as the reincarnation of this abbess, but he wasn't formally recognised. But then when he left the monastery and he was given to Lama Zopa, and he took care of Lama Zopa, and then he became his, and then they developed together. They met Western students in the 60s and then started Kopan Monastery and then so on and so forth. Centres like this developed as a result. It's about 150 or something, it's 160, I forget now, around the world these days. So Lama Yeshe, he was nobody. He didn't have any reputation. He was a regular monk, hadn't finished his studies, he had a few students in the monastery like they all do, from the debate yard. But then he started meeting Westerners. Well, in the beginning, because he wasn't a Geshe, he wasn't a Rinpoche, and the Tibetans are very into hierarchies, He just like this little upstart monk. And all these Westerners, and so people kind of probably talking about, oh, he wants their money and that kind of thing, But eventually he connected with a lot of Western students, even in the 10 years that he was alive. The 10 years that he was, I think from like 71, 69, 68 maybe, 67 he might have met his first Western students. Then he passed away in 84. So he went to Kathmandu in about 1969, met all these Western hippies, Gradually he was living in Bodhanath. And then he went and bought this place called Kopan Monastery, like a hill. Just a hill called Kopan, about a 40-minute walk up the hill from Bodhanath, outside Kathmandu. And it used to be where the king's astrologer would live, and it still is one little temple is there, a Hindu. So that's now been the base of Lama Zopa Lama Yeshe's students. But what happened with Lama Zopa, he went back up to Laudo years later after he escaped. after he went to India. And when in 1971, I think, he accepted the cave back and became officially the local Lama, you know. So I think then he started a school for about 30 boys, a monastery. And then eventually they moved down to Copan Monastery full time. So now that's a monastery of about 350, 400 monks, which they've got a complete, you know, Geshe program there, many graduates from that. And there's a nunnery just down the hill, about 350, 400 nuns there doing 3-year retreats and doing all the studies as well. So they've got all these students. So this is where you can deduce from Lama Yeshe, there's the work he's been doing. He started these monasteries, all these Tibetan monks, Tibetan nuns. He's got these thousands of Western as well as Chinese and other students around the world. So you look at all this, you know, and this is some evidence of maybe some qualities. So that's how he became a Lama. I remember when Lama Yeshe passed away, we did a magazine, and I interviewed lots of people about Lama Yeshe, how he passed away and everything. And even the way he passed away, they would say that's evidence of having qualities. The way he meditated at the time of death and was able to meditate after he stopped breathing, all these kind of things. And so they say that's a sign too of his qualifications, you know. So then so then what happened when he passed away? Lama Zopa being his main disciple and himself called a Lama, okay, his job is to sort of search for the reincarnation. That's how they talk. So he was, you know, keeping his eye on new babies getting born, the west, east, everywhere. And then finally I remember when this little Spanish boy, Ursel, who's been the one who's called the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe now, when he was about 6 months old, and I was in London at our centre there, and Lama Zopa suddenly, out of the blue, showed me this photo of himself on the throne with a baby, this boy, in his lap. He just showed me the photo. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if he thinks this is Lama Yeshe. He must have showed people, just to see if people said anything. I didn't recognise, so I just gave it back, you know. So eventually he was checking up little boys, meeting them all. Girls too, probably, but whatever. There are quite a few girls now, I'll tell you some stories. This little boy, so then he met other little boys, and then he had a short list. Because he does his own meditation, his own divinations, and he got a short list of candidates, as they call it, they're very professional, sent it to the Dalai Lama, who then does his checking and checks up on his people who do their divinations, and then he came up with this little one called Ursel. So Lama Zopa rang his mum, Maria, who was a student of Lama Yeshe, and said, bring Ursel to Delhi and meet the Dalai Lama. I think he was 14 months old at the time. And the Dalai Lama met him and said, it seems to be that this is correct, but of course he will show who he really is from his own life. And then he said to Lama Zopa, he seems quite young to recognise him. You know, normally these tulkus are usually 2 or more before they're formally recognised, you know. But Rinpoche then said they drove from Delhi to Dharamsala, which is about 12, 14 hours, and he had little Ursula in the back. He said he thought about it and prayed the whole time and decided when he got to Dharamsala that it was beneficial to announce, even though he was very young, because the Western students of Lama Yeshe were somehow very wanting, you know. So he announced this little Ursula, with whom I talked about yesterday. So, does that answer questions?
Yep.
Yes? What about you?
Yeah,
Worry what?
Yes,
You
it
okay?
does.
Okay, good. Because like I said yesterday, you know, in these monasteries, this wonderful kind of democratic method they use. You're a monk, you go to the monastery, and you go to the debate yard, you check out these different monks debating, and you think, oh, I like that guy. So you go over him and you say, please teach me. So he becomes your teacher. It's really organic. So in these monasteries, there are hundreds of teachers. They don't bring in professors like we do and hire them, you know. It grows from the inside. It's really quite a nice way to develop it. And it's very natural. So if you can be the greatest person with the greatest knowledge, but if no one asks you to teach, well, you don't become a teacher. It's very simple. You never open your mouth until you're asked. That would be considered extremely bad manners, you know. Yeah. Sure. Yes, Don.
Hi, I'm just curious to know, what's the relationship afterwards with the one's newly reincarnated Lama?
Depends on the person. I was saying yesterday, for some people who are very devoted to Lama Yeshe, have made no connection at all with this Lama Ursel. Whereas in my case, I would say, I made a conscious effort from the beginning to think of him as my Lama. I haven't had any teachings from him, but he hasn't taught, you know. It's like individuals, very different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good. Depends on the person. Someone else? Questions, people? Questions? Yes, good. Yep.
You said earlier about how people get very emotional, too emotional when making these decisions.
Yeah.
And you have to be logical and you have to do your research. When one finds oneself being emotional, do you have any
Yeah, emotion's
suggestions?
okay. Some people, you know, when they meet their guru, they nearly faint, they cry, their legs shake, they collapse, they're in bliss. You read all these stories of the great yogis, you know. I mean, oh, there you go, how fortunate. I mean, maybe you have that response. But what I mean by emotional is attachment. All overexcited. All overexcited, you know. So my feeling is, the approach is very simple. That if you... Okay, my feeling was when I met Lama Yeshe, it was very intense for me. I mean, first of all, I was in this turmoil because I was complaining about all these wretched men and they're all saying he and everything. Here I was, this radical feminist trying to put it all together. You understand? So it was quite intense for me. And then knowing it was my path, knowing deep in my heart this is where I'd been wanting all my life, there's no question about it, but struggling with it, questioning it, you know, fully stripping it open. There's no doubt about that. And liking Lama Yeshe, but took refuge with him, took initiation from him. So in a sense, already made him my Lama, but hadn't formally asked him. So went back home, and then for 6 months practicing, and then one day, kind of with space and time, it became clear. So, you know, my feeling is, if some people have absolute clarity, it's not even emotional, it's like as if it was written in the sky. I'm your Lama. You know, this is how one of my friends, when he first met Lama Yeshe, it was just clear to him, as if it was being told to him by somebody else, and there was never a doubt in his mind. Some people are like that. Other people really struggle and try to work out what it is, you know. So the point is, what I'm saying, if there's an initial feeling, feels right, but then if there's not, there's a bit of a turmoil, give it 6 months, give it 3 months, let it settle. Let it settle. And then if it's still clear, it'll become clear. If it's not, then you go, oh. It's like, you know, when you go out with some person, you think you're in love with him, you think he's the best person who's ever come along, but you get out of his way for a week and you oh my God, what an idiot I was, you know. Because attachment's very tricky. Attachment can be very, very tricky, you know. So give our minds space.
So attachment to what?
Attachment doesn't matter what to what. Attachment in its nature is neediness, hungry, manipulative, scared, projecting, making things look more delicious than they really are. And it doesn't matter whether it's a cake or a guru, it'll do the same thing on both. It'll make them more delicious than they really are, and then we'll believe the fantasy rather than the reality. So it's really helpful, you know, to give it space and time. But then not to be so cautious that you never can make up your mind, because that's people, you know, fearful. I'm never sure if I'm right. Oh my God, what if I make a mistake, you know? Do you understand?
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I could read you from the book and everything, but I see what happens to when I read you from the book. Qualities of a Vajra master. This is even more intense. The 50 verses of Guru Devotion describes the perfect qualities of a Vajra master who reveals the tantric teachings in the following way. Firm and subdued, intelligent, patient, sincere, without cunning, knowledgeable in mantras and the various activities of Tantra, compassionate and loving, learned in the scriptures, proficient in the 10 principles, expert in drawing mandalas, skilled in explaining tantric teachings, calm with subdued senses. So they're the qualifications. So with some lamas you can kind of see it, isn't it? Like Choden Rinpoche, isn't it? Don't you feel? People who know say Choden Rinpoche. You hear about his history, you know, 30 years 19 years sitting on a bed in a little basement in Tibet, acting like an old sick person, because all the Chinese communists coming around checking up on him. He told me, I interviewed him in Mandalore, and he told me that the only possession he had was a tiny mala that he kept in a little hidden pocket just here. And he'd keep his little mala and he'd snuck that out every now and again. But that was the only thing he had. He had no possessions, no texts, no statues. And this is the advantage of memorizing everything. All the practices, he was like a walking computer, you know. All his visualizations, all his memory, all the practices, all the texts were in his mind. And he sat there for 19 years, basically like in a cave, looking like a sick person, but meditating. Meditating. Now somehow, without even knowing much, isn't it true, when you meet Choden Rinpoche, one of these old lamas, you kind of, if you've got any way, halfway, some kind of reasonableness in your mind about what's a reasonable quality, of kindness. And if you're looking for a spiritual thing, you can't help but see qualities, you know. You just can't help but see qualities. And then, of course, it's helped by hearing other high lamas, quote unquote, all praise him, which makes it easier for us. But some of them, you just, you know, especially, and this is where you see, this is where it gets tricky too. If we didn't have, if we didn't have the karmic connection with this path, you know, like one of my sisters might meet Choden Rinpoche, like meeting Lama Zopa, and just think he's a weird, strange old man. Because there's no karmic connection, there's no interest in Buddhism, there's no wish for a spiritual path. So obviously with that mind, that person wouldn't see. And this again is the point about what you see. You know, we who want a spiritual path, who seem to like Buddhism, when we meet a person who embodies Buddhist qualities, then we'll recognise. But if you don't want Buddhist qualities and you have no karmic connection with Buddhism, you just see this funny old bloke who sat in a bed for 19 years. What an idiot. So even forget the homeless person. Karmic appearances is really already, in other words, we have to say, we must have set ourselves up from past practice, from so much merit, as they say, so much virtue, that we've even fallen into a place, you know, with valid people around. That we're not sitting in Jim Jones's place in Guyana, wherever it was, when I just read that book, and the fear that people had, the behaviour of Jim Jones, you know, and the fear of people, and the ignorance and the panic and the worry and believing and not believing and just the superstition was, I mean, to have the karma to be involved in that is like a nightmare. Just talking to you. Which is why we have to use that common sense. So strongly. But this big point, you see, the one that is difficult for our minds, I've indicated it before. 20 to 3. What time is it? 2, 1, 3, 4. Gosh. Okay. I was supposed to, okay. This one of once you've committed, like the one, my example of my Lama, this Lama I told you about. This is the part that seems hard to us. You think logically, if a person goes against your other Lama, goes against the Dalai Lama, he has to be wrong. Because we've got this mind, you know, this dualistic mind that sees, wants to, like I said, this attachment in us wants to make everything all nice. So when we can't reconcile that, we think we have to take sides. He's either right or he's wrong. But this is my point, more than anything. We don't have to make a decision. That, for me, is the liberating idea. You don't have to make a decision. If you don't have the means to judge if that person is playing the piano right or wrong, you don't have to agonise and take someone's side. You just leave it there. You leave it there. And that's so safe, actually, because we can't... What makes us think we can understand the entire world? What makes us think, even on a regular world, what makes us think we should understand it all? It's too painful for our mind. So leave it there. Protect your own mind. Therefore, for that Lama is one of my Lamas. So the teaching they give, the way they describe it in the teachings, is if we understand the meaning of Buddha, which is the Dharmakaya, which is Buddha mind. Consciousness is not physical. When the mind is fully developed, it becomes a Buddha mind. Your mind, my mind, everybody's mind. So there's trillions of beings, people like you and me, who have become a Buddha. Well, that Buddha mind is one mind. As Lama Zopa said, it's like the Christian teaching of one God, the Dharmakaya. There is one. There's one all-knowing, all-seeing consciousness. It's not as if, I mean, if consciousness is not physical, think about this. If it's not physical, and it knows that which exists, has an infinite wisdom and infinite compassion, and is pervading the universe, which is the natural state of mind, when it's fully unencumbered by all pollution, that's what Buddha means. How can there be more one? How can there be more one of those? It's too much of a dualistic concept. So when you become a Buddha, and I become a Buddha, and this becomes a Buddha, and she becomes a Buddha, you don't kind of join a cosmic consciousness somewhere, but we're the same Buddha. That's the Dharmakaya, actual Buddha. They say the absolute Buddha, the actual Buddha. But there are millions, trillions of physical emanations of Buddha mind. That's at the dualistic level. They are different. There's the Dalai Lama as a manifestation. There's someone else. There's Shakyamuni Buddha. There's this one. There's that one. There's a girl one. There's a rough one. There's a peaceful one. There's a nice one. There's a sweet one. There's an ugly one. Millions of emanations for the sake of sentient beings. So, in my practice, in our practice of wanting to develop my mind and to become my Buddha, The key is to smash delusions. Delusions are dualistic. They see this and that. They see good and bad. They see dualistically. So we're trying to get past that. So that means as much as we can to cultivate what they call pure view. Don't believe in your karmic appearances. It's just due to my past karma that things appear this way. Now that means I can imagine if there are minds that are pure and I have compassion and are manifesting in many forms throughout this universe in all kinds of ways. Peaceful ones and wrathful ones and sweet ones, like I said before. Then you can't tell by looking what they are because they're ordinary forms. They take on this bag of bones looking like you and me. So a Buddha doesn't need a body, you see. A Buddha has gone beyond the need for any gross body whatsoever. A body by definition is a result of past pollution. So when the mind is pure, if they take a body, they're pretending, they're like play acting to be a human, or they're play acting to be a dog. They're play acting to be that homeless person. So it's like smoke and mirrors, you know. So therefore, if I have a relationship with a Lama whom I'm using as my knowledge holder to show me how to become a Buddha, and I've got a relationship with several Lamas, let's say, they're all got different shapes and sizes, then it's obvious that I want to see them all as a manifestation of the Dharmakaya. Why not? It helps my mind. Therefore, one keeps me up till 3 in the morning and one else is sweet to me, another one goes against my other Lama. They all do different trips, you know. That's okay. They're just playing with my mind, so that's cool. I'll keep steady. I'll keep clear. They're all the Buddha for me. I'm happy. And guess who gets the benefit of this? No, I don't go around doing political about it. I'm not trying to force people to believe he's a Buddha, which is the external nonsense. That's my private business. It's my private business. Because I want to get enlightened as quickly as possible. So I'm going to stop falling into this dualistic trap. Are we communicating, people?
Yes.
So once I have taken initiation, taken refuge, taken lay vows from a person, they're a manifestation of the Dharmakaya in my mind. And I'll, again, keep repeating, it's personal, you don't talk about it, it's not a political statement, it's not a policy statement, it's your personal practice to help you develop your qualities. So if we're not ready for this, don't go there, babies. No hurry. Get some grounding in renunciation, understanding karma, understanding the nature of mind, understanding bodhicitta, understanding emptiness. Because this is the basis for understanding it. You can't just by reading the words. It's too superstition. It's just too much fear, as he says. So go slowly, slowly, one step at a time. Yeah. Yes, we know.
When in daily life, when you come upon somebody who is difficult, creates negative feelings and states of mind. I'm not talking about a teacher. I'm just talking about
regular old maniac people.
There is the strategy of seeing this person as a teacher, that they have something to teach you. But then there's also the fear, and you said this in a teaching I went to a few months ago, that you have to protect your mind sometimes from people.
That's right.
How do you know when you're in a situation like this whether this is somebody you need to protect yourself from?
Of course, it's perfect. But you do both. You do both. You do both. You can do both. You can sit there and see this wretched person at work who's completely driving you crazy, whom you can't stand any longer, right? You can recognize your limited ability to deal with this maniac. But then in your mind, you're realizing, I'm not strong enough yet. I don't have enough power. I haven't got enough renunciation. I haven't got enough rid of attachment. I don't understand emptiness yet, so I've got to back away from this. Meanwhile, you keep your mind pure. There's no contradiction. Get the hell out of their way, please. But don't blame them. Think, this is the one for me I find so helpful. 2 approaches. Because our instinctive deluded mind wants to find fault. The first thing our mind does is find fault. That's what attachment does when it doesn't get what it wants. The first instinct, and that's the meaning of samsara. So the 2 things I say to myself, as soon as I see something, read about it. I love to read things, the news, the books, the crazy people, read about animal ads, all these people. The first thing you want to do is find fault and get angry and criticise and get all hoity-toity and how dare they do this and who do they think they are and these gun people and blah, blah. We love to give lectures, you know. The first thing is, I say to myself, thank you for showing me how not to be. I'm so grateful, you know. It's, when you think of that Adam Lanza, you just think of his mind, his paranoid, uncontrolled, completely insane mind, plus the karma of past killing. Get all this together and you look at the nightmare. You think, oh my God, what a wake-up call. I'm going to watch my mind. I'm going to stop being angry. I'm going to stop projecting, because that's the lesson right there. That's how you see him as your teacher. Not, oh, thank you for showing me, Adam, as if he did anything. He didn't do anything. And the second one is, you start finding fault in somebody, you go, I recognise that, and you shut your mouth. So you keep bringing it back to yourself. You bring it back to yourself. As you're saying, it's about your own mind, you know. So it doesn't deny there is external reality. So we must check and must get the best teacher and must have the valid thing and must get the right instructions, because if you hear the wrong instructions on emptiness, you are lost. So you've got to do that. No contradiction. You see. This is hard because it's about emptiness. It's about karmic appearances, which is about emptiness. And this is tough, you know, it's difficult. One step at a time. I think there's enough, don't you? I didn't give you many details, and I didn't mean to give you details, but I haven't. Sorry. So I think we can finish. Yes? Do you think? Any more fears? You? Theory? No? You okay?
Theory is good.
Calm down a bit, I'm going to go down. Nobody else? Anything? Yes, sweetheart. Yeah.
You may have answered this, I'm not sure. How do you tell the difference between Jim Jones and Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, right? So they
We're
were
back
both,
to the beginning of the whole discussion, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're right back to the beginning.
because they were both controversial figures.
I know,
And
but
if
that's-
you look at Chogyam Trungpa, he had amazing students.
Well, that's, you're answering your own question, aren't you? You're answering your own question. You just answered it, right there. That's one of the elements, isn't it, you have to check up on. You answered it right there.
Okay.
That's the nuts and bolts of how you check. I mean, I read Steve, what's his name? Jim Jones's teachings. I'm sorry. Anybody with half a brain can see the man's a maniac. Some of his actions look really good. He was very helpful. He was good to poor people. But once you start to get beneath the surface, and you saw the words he said, but then you see the words Trungpa said, even that level, use your own common sense. If you've got any wisdom, you can see that I think Trungpa said wise things, and then you check his students. There's no question. Seems to me. It doesn't mean you wouldn't see Jim Jones hasn't got good students. I've had some very nice people who are Jim Jones' students. But I think on a really, this is on a very conventional level, I think it's not rocket science. But what's interesting is you don't know that Jim Jones wasn't a Buddha. And that's the real heaviest level of it. Which doesn't mean you follow Jim Jones.
It's the hardest part.
For example, I remember Lama Zopa talking about, there was the whole discussion about pure view and you don't know who anybody is, which is literally true if you understand bodhicitta and emptiness and how bodhisattvas can take rebirths and appear in any old way they like. So, he said there was this one particular, this kind of crazy butcher at the bottom of the Potala, who would, he was like a real butcher. He'd kill people and, cut the oxes and cut the whatever. He was like a maniac. But they said he was Yamataka. Now, we love to hear stories like that. But if you met this guy, you wouldn't say, oh, wow, there's Yamataka. You'd get the hell out of his way. If you met Yamataka in human form, you wouldn't feel happy, people. So we've really got to hear this stuff carefully. And this is where this is outrageous when we think of the tantric level, We've got to understand emptiness. We've got to some degree, got to understand how karma is and got to understand bodhicitta, how it's possible for a high mind to manifest as a monster. I remember one Lama saying that for the Tibetans to think that Mao Tse-tung is the Buddha, manifesting as a wrathful Buddha, for their benefit, there's no problem with that. And these teachings, once you've got this clear under your belt, it fits logically, but it sounds so shocking to speak it. So we've got to understand the teachings. So at the very beginning stages of looking for a teacher, the way, for example, Alex Berzin, Teresa's telling me how he teaches, is completely correct. for ordinary mind. I'm not saying we're not ordinary mind. This stuff is heavy-duty stuff, but there's basis for it to understand it. But you've got to have a basis to be able to incorporate it and to actually start practicing your own life. Are we communicating, people?
Yes.
Yes.
Does it make sense, Therese, what I'm saying? And the way the world is, it's so diluted. But these days, with so many people who are said to, gurus and not gurus, they might be Buddhas, they might not be Buddhas. But what you're hearing again and again is people from the Dalai Lama down, they criticize them and they tell them to stop. They're not going, oh, they could be a bodhisattva. They criticize them. Because you see, this is another interesting point, which makes it tricky for our minds as well. In the teachings, you've got different levels of practice. So the Hinayana level, which is the first 2 scopes of the Lam Rim, which is all about behaviour. It's all about behaviour, right? Mm-hmm. That means what you say and what you do. So correct behaviour is what the world sees. And the world we're in right now, we need that very badly. We don't have enough faith in the Dharma. For example, the Dalai Lama, the 6th Dalai Lama, there was a big controversy about how the 5th Dalai Lama passed away. So they kept it hidden because they didn't want the Vatala. They wanted the Vatala to be finished. It's all this dramas, So they didn't announce his passing away for a couple of years. Meanwhile, the new one got born, but he wasn't sort of put into the little kind of monk mould early enough, so he gave it all up. So he ended up manifesting as this crazy guy who'd run around hanging out with the prostitutes, loving his sex and everything. But the Tibetans don't have a problem. They had such confidence, faith, in the Dalai Lama. They understand the tantric approach. They understand how a being can manifest in a form that doesn't look cool. They had complete faith in the Dalai Lama. They didn't mind that he hung out with a prostitute. Now, can you imagine the Dalai Lama disrobes and hangs out with prostitutes? Do you understand my point here? 99% of Buddhists would give him up, forget the rest of the world. Because we are living in such a degenerate time. And that's why Trungpa was so controversial. We can't cope with a person who behaved wrongly. And that's why the lamas, I heard of one Sakya Lama somewhere who was not doing the right thing. And so the Sakya Trinzen came right down on him and said, okay, you mustn't see him as a lama anymore, you throw him out. Really traditional, ordinary behaviour, which is the level I think Alex is talking about. Therese, do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, it's appropriate to behave properly. And a bodhisattva, if they're going to not behave properly, they're going to be prepared to be criticised and accept it. Because the world is a very degenerate time, and we don't have pure view in our culture. We have dualistic, samsaric view that believes in what it sees. So to really benefit sentient beings, you've got to behave nicely. I know I with my, Barbara kindly pointed out to me today, I've got this rough manner, and I upset people. And I know that. So I'm not trying to point Barbara out, she's pointing me out. So I'm confessing to it. I am rough. I swear. I say 4-letter words. So it's not cool, It hurts people. I've got to be careful. Do you understand? That's called behaviour. That's called behaviour. Okay, I mean well. I can't say, well, I mean well. It's not enough to mean well. You've got to have wisdom. So behaviour is, how you appear to the world. This other one is more advanced level. The Bodhisattva one, the Tantric one, is outrageous. And you've got to have a really sound understanding of that to get yourself into these views. And, when there's... But I might as well criticise Lama Zopa too, because it's not cool behaviour to keep people up till 3 in the morning. You see what I'm saying here? Although, we're not going to get upset with him. But in ordinary terms of behaviour, it isn't cool. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And an ordinary person wouldn't sit up at 3 in the morning. They'd say, excuse me, I'm leaving at 8 o'clock, So behaviour is really important, because that's what we present to other people. In the Bodhisattva path, you can't tell a Bodhisattva by how they look. You cannot tell. That's what the Tibetans say. And forget the Tantric one. If you met Yamataka in human form, believe me, they'd kill you. Oh yeah, there's the Buddha, we'd say. Ha ha. We would not, because we don't have pure view. So this is a tough one. That's why we've got to understand the teachings, the structure, the Lam Rim, where it all fits, how to interpret things. It's quite technical, really, and needs quite a bit of thinking. Are we communicating here, people?
Yes.
So slowly, slowly, babies, there's no hurry. It's okay. Some people you can see took the students. What's her name? What's her name, that nun? Yeah, Pema Chodron. There she's a really proper nun. Totally devoted to Trungpa. So that's a really good sign, isn't it? That he's this maniac who got drunk and had sex with girls and things. Well, that's right. Well, lucky students. I know, that's a shocking thing to say in the West. We're so shocked about sex. Lucky students having sex with a bodhisattva. Wow. Right. Was that controversial? Was that controversial? Wait, these look a bit shocked. Did I shock you?
No?
You understand my point? Thank you very much. Did I upset anybody? Barbara, did I upset you? No. You sure there's nobody upset? I better check up. Yeah.
The other side of people being upset by your manner.
Yeah.
In the car on the way down here, we were saying how much we appreciate the fact that you cut through the
Oh, I
nonsense.
see, my manner.
We love that.
I've got it. Oh, I know it can. Yeah, I know. That's right. Yes. Well, actually, my nephew made a film years ago, Chasing Buddha, and you know, about me, and he was very naughty. And after I approved the movie, he put in this scene of me telling my sister how annoyed I was with my nephew at some point, and I was swearing. And he had the camera on me. I didn't know. He put it in, and that was the one that was in the cinemas in Melbourne, Sydney, and the one that Baba Zoba saw. Basically, I was ready to resign from the FBMT. Oh my God! But I remember this because there was some prisons in it, right? I went to see some prisoners, and there was this bloke at Brisbane Airport. I could tell he was an ex-prisoner. He had missing teeth and tattoos and everything. And he came out. He said, "Oh, I saw you on the telly." He said, "Can I be colloquial? You're fantastic." So he liked the idea. I can't make everybody happy. Okay, let's go. Well, I hope there's some food for thought here, people. It's a deadly serious path, but in a marvellous way, not a fearful one. There's amazing teachings. Don't underestimate. It's really structured, it's technical, it's logical, and the more we do it, the more it all makes sense, if this is your path. And all this idea of the Guru will all fit. You know, you think of it so carefully. You listen to it, think about it. Don't be superstitious. Don't be afraid. Trust your own wisdom. Trust your own inner Guru, basically. Have to. Because you are the boss. This is the main point Buddha's making. Nobody made us. It's a shocking concept. Nobody made us. We did. So we're the boss. We make our choices. So really remember these people. All right. So we dedicate any virtue that's come from this, any insights we've received, any steps we've moved forward, seeds we've planted, so that we do become our own amazing, amazing Buddha as quickly as possible for the sake of every single suffering sentient being. Kewajin yududan lama sange drugyurne drowa chikyang maruha dei sana Jantum semcho rinpoche, mahye manam ke yuchi, ke panyam pa me payam, gom ne gom du bhavasho. Okay, thank you so much. So those people who were meeting before at noon, we're supposed to meet again here at 3:30 before the puja. Okay. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, what's this? More?
Thank you. Then we'll be there.